Joining us on TheInformer via Zoom is a long-time media professional and, in fact, crisis management specialist. His name is Steve Carey. Steve, great to have you on board. We want to talk about a bundle of things. One of them is the upcoming delivery of the vaccines in Australia. There's been so much talk around it. We're seeing them being rolled out not only in the United States but also in Britain. Indeed, the numbers are extremely gratifying. But the discussion at the moment from media and others is seriously confusing. I think there is a tone in the marketplace that I haven't heard before. Is that fair to say?
Look, I think so, George, and thanks for having me. Should I say right from the start, the reason we're doing Zoom is that we're right back in Victoria where we were, last year. I'll come to that in a minute, but to answer your question, I think it's fair to question what's happening in the marketplace, so to speak, with the vaccines. I watched quite a few of the media outlets. There was Sunrise, there was a Current Affair saying that they would answer all the questions. And with the best intentions to my friends in the media, they didn't answer all the questions. In fact, what wasn't answered was far greater than the sum total of my knowledge after I finished watching those programs. I'm not singling out any particular program, but I think it highlights the nature of this vaccine dilemma. And I call it a dilemma because it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is we have potentially some kind of solution, right? And that's fantastic because it's giving hope to a lot of people who need hope. The curse part of it is we still don't know enough about some of these vaccines. I mean, what does it do to pregnant women? What are the effects on breastfeeding women? What are the long-term effects on kids down the track? I'm not even going to mention any of the things that have happened in the past because we're not here to incite hysteria or make people worried. But I do think we need to have potentially a cautious approach. Clearly, we need the vaccine. Yes, it needs to be rolled out. Yes, the bulk of the population need to be inoculated. But do we need to go hell for leather when we consider that Australia has done pretty well containing the virus at the moment? So I'd just add a cautionary tale, I guess. Yeah. And the media's role in that is to disseminate that information more quickly, more accurately. They're hamstrung too because you're only as good as your source.
And the other question that is sitting right on the very edge that needs to be answered is the efficacy. The fact that we've got not just one vaccine in the wind or down the track. There are umpteen different pharmaceutical companies that are lining up to deliver because they see a great opportunity to, one, spread their influence, make some money, and there will be enormous amounts of money to be made during this COVID inoculation period that we're seeing being rolled out across the world. What is the absolute role of media? I mean, we're not supposed to be conspiracy theorists.
The role of the media is not to peddle conspiracy theories. Okay. That is not the role of the media. The role of the media is to shine a light on the nonsense and BS that's being peddled by some of those conspiracy theorists. I mean, what we don't want and don't need at the moment, in my view, is mass panic or people not getting inoculated and then dropping dead because they were too worried. So what the role of the media is to find those experts that we can trust. Now, I watched last night a medical expert who said, this is unparalleled in human existence, that we've had not just one vaccine been rolled out, but we've got 3, 4, potentially 5 in the space of a year. Now, these are things that usually take years and years and years. They take the testing on animals or whatever first, then human trials. So because the need is so great, we bypass some of those strictures, I guess. So the role of the media is not to incite panic, but the role of the media is to report when it needs to be reported. For example, if there was an outbreak or some adverse effect from some trial group or a group in the UK or America or whatever, then we should be asking those questions. We should be asking intelligent questions of our medical professionals, and we should be guided by that and not guided by people who are armchair experts who have no knowledge at all and are peddling fear and conspiracy. That's my view, George.
Steve, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's the tone. What have you made of the tone of the collective media?
Well, I think we're all, at the moment, I think depending on what side of the fence you sit, you're either a rah-rah person for the vaccine or you're somebody on the other side of the fence who says, go with great caution. I'd like to see more of a middle. I've always been a middle ground kind of person. My view is always get the expert opinion, give the facts, let the facts lie where they lie, but make sure that you give enough information to your audience in a way that's digestible to people who have very little medical knowledge, the understanding of what they're in for, so that they can also be informed about what is potentially going to affect them for the rest of their lives too.
And what have you made of the last 24 hours with the break in protocols in Victoria?
I think I'm like a lot of Victorians. On one hand, I'm incredibly angry, and I'm also fatigued. And I think that's the thing. People outside of Victoria don't really understand the impact that this is going to have on the wider community within this state. We endured months and months and months of lockdown, some of the severest, harshest lockdown restrictions on the planet. We did that. We successfully got rid of it. We had another minor outbreak. We dealt with that. The time for recriminations will come later. I mean, I think a lot of people will be saying, did we need to have the Australian Open? But that's a debate for later. But now that it's out, we don't know how much of it is out. We don't know potentially how many other cases. The Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, has already said, stand by, they're going to have to be some more. And it's how we deal with that. But I think people are tired, George, and they're fatigued and they're worried. And I feel for the wider business community and the school kids. Once again, let's hope we can contain it really quickly, because what we don't want to be is the screaming voice of panic on the sidelines. Nobody needs that. But I feel quite fatigued. Personally, I feel quite fatigued that we're back here again.
I think the thing that got up my goat this morning especially was when I understood very early on that the new Department of Health realised that there was a problem at 3:30. The Premier was, I think, brought into the picture around about 6:30. And Craig Tiley, who's running the Australian Open, found out at a proper gathering, a gala event, in fact, at around about 8:30. I mean, what's going on? Wouldn't you have thought that all of them would have been brought into the picture from the first moment?
Well, it's that old one, George, isn't it? Sometimes you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I mean, you don't want to go you don't want to go early. You don't want to go too early. But when it's something like this, gee, it's a fine line. I'd hate to be making that decision. My gut feeling of everything we've endured would always be to let those who need to know straight off the top. Not in a panic sense, just a calm, this is what we're potentially confronting. Don't hit the panic button yet, but these are the things that are in train, so that they can also let people know within their team what needs to be done and what needs to be mobilised. I think the bigger picture here too is, do we need to have hotel quarantine in within the city centre? I mean, clearly we still have issues with that, with the best of intention, the best of tracing. Do we need to have these centres in the heart of Melbourne? There's an argument now potentially that maybe there should be hubs outside, an hour out of Melbourne or whatever, so that they can be contained, so that if a worker does go out, it's contained to that local area. So look, I'm not an expert, I'm just a media commentator, but I think what we sometimes lack in these things is a big dose of common sense.
Spoken with a lot of conviction. Steve Carey, thank you very much for joining us via Zoom and for giving us an understanding of just some of the challenges that we've faced, and more importantly, some of the responsibilities the media has and needs to address and needs to get right between now and the rest of 2021. Thank you, Steve, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks, George.
Steve Carey on The Informer.